Before we begin, let your body get heavier than you think it needs to be. You do not have to listen carefully. That is the first thing to let go of. You do not have to follow every sentence or remember any of it or arrive anywhere by the end. There is no end you are trying to reach. There is only this slow hour and the dark and a voice that will keep moving whether you stay awake for it or not. So let your shoulders come down from where they have been living up near your ears. Let your jaw loosen. Let the small muscles around your eyes stop holding. You have been holding all day, most days, for years, holding your face together, holding your plans in place, holding the whole careful structure of your life upright with the sheer effort of your attention. Tonight, you are allowed to put it down. Not forever, just for now, just long enough to sleep. Tonight we are going to spend a few slow hours with a very old man. He lived, if he lived at all, about 2,500 years ago in ancient China, and his name comes down to us as Lao Tzu, which means, more or less, the old master. We know almost nothing about him for certain. And that is fitting, because the one thing he is remembered for saying is that the deepest truths cannot really be pinned down, cannot be fully named, and that the more tightly you grasp at them, the more they slip away. He taught something that sounds, at first, almost too simple to matter. He taught that there is a way the world already moves. He called it the Tao, the way, and that most of our suffering comes from fighting against that movement instead of settling into it. He taught that water, the softest and most yielding thing there is, wears down the hardest stone. He taught that the wise person does less, forces less, grasps less, and somehow arrives more gently at what matters. You do not have to believe any of it. You only have to let it wash over you, the way water washes over a stone in a stream bed, asking nothing of the stone, changing it slowly over years without ever once pushing. Let the sounds of the room around you become distant now. Let the weight of the blanket be the main fact of your body. And let us begin softly, the way everything soft begins, without force. Chapter 1. The weight you carry into the dark. Notice, for a moment, how much you brought to bed with you tonight. Not the pillow, not the blanket, the other things. The unanswered message you keep meaning to send. The conversation that did not go the way you wanted, replaying itself one more time in the quiet. The list of what tomorrow will ask of you, the low background hum of 100 small responsibilities, each one light on its own, all of them together pressing down on your chest like a hand. You carry this weight so constantly that you have stopped noticing it is a weight at all. It feels like just the texture of being awake, being a person who has things to do. Being someone the world depends on in your small corner of it. The old master noticed this in people even long ago, even before phones and inboxes and the endless machinery of modern hurry. He saw that human beings have a strange habit. We take the natural weight of a life which is real and which everyone carries, and we add to it a second weight, an invisible one, made entirely of our resistance to the first. We do not just carry the task, we carry our dread of the task. We do not just feel the tiredness, we fight the tiredness, and the fighting tires us more than the tiredness ever could. Think of how that works. The work itself, whatever it was today, was probably not what exhausted you most. What exhausted you was the wanting it to be over, the clenching against it, the part of your mind that stood off to the side all day, tense, muttering, "This is too much, I cannot keep this up, when will it stop?" That voice did not lift a single thing, it only strained, and straining all day with nothing to show for it is its own particular kind of tired. Tonight, in the dark, you could begin to set the second weight down first. Not the real one. We will come to that, gently, later, and you may find it is lighter than you feared. But the second one, the resistance, the clenching, the argument with your own life, that one you can release right now, and nothing bad will happen. The tasks do not get bigger because you stopped bracing against them. They only wait patiently the way tasks always do, whether you tense or not. Feel where in your body you are still bracing. Perhaps the stomach drawn tight. Perhaps the hands half curled even now. Perhaps somewhere behind the eyes, a readiness that never quite switches off, and let it be just slightly less. You do not have to force the bracing to stop. That would only be more force, more effort, one more thing to do. You only have to notice it, and let noticing be enough, and let the muscle decide on its own to loosen, the way a fist opens by itself once you simply stop clenching it. The old master would say, you were never meant to hold your life together by strength. That is not how anything living stays whole. The tree does not hold its own branches up by effort. The river does not push itself downhill by will. They rest inside a movement larger than themselves, and they are carried. So are you. You have simply forgotten, under all that carrying, that you are also being carried. Let that be the thought you loosen into now, not a belief to defend, just a possibility to lean back against, the way you lean back into a chair you finally trust to hold you. You brought a great weight into the dark tonight. You are allowed to arrive here and, one layer at a time, put it down. Chapter 2. The river you have been pushing. There is an old image at the very heart of what the old master taught, and it is worth letting it settle into you slowly, because everything else grows out of it. The image is simply this: a river. Imagine one now. Not a wild river, not a flood. A wide, calm river moving through low country in the evening. The surface dark and smooth. Catching the last light. It has been moving like this for longer than anyone can remember. It knows exactly where it is going, though it has never once decided. It goes downward, always downward, toward the sea, not because it is ambitious, but because that is simply the shape of the land and the pull of the deep, and the water has no argument with either. Now imagine a person standing waist-deep in that river, facing upstream, pushing the water with both hands, hard, trying to help it along, trying to make it move faster or better, or in a way that feels more like effort, more like contribution, more like being needed. The person is sweating, the person is exhausted. And the river, of course, does not move one bit faster for all of it. The river was already going where it goes. The pushing changes nothing except the person who grows more and more tired and more convinced that without their pushing, the whole river would somehow stop. You have been that person. Most of us have, for most of our lives. We stand in the middle of a life that is in truth already moving, already carrying us forward through our days, whether we strain or not, and we push. We push at the morning to make it start. We push at our own tiredness to make it lift. We push at other people to make them be a little different. We push at outcomes that were going to arrive in their own time anyway, and we call all this pushing responsibility or drive or just the way things are, and we cannot imagine stopping because we have confused the pushing with the moving. Here is what the old master saw so clearly. The moving does not need you. The moving takes care of itself. The river of your life, the slow current of days and seasons and unfolding events, has its own momentum, far older and far stronger than your two straining hands. Your pushing was never what kept it going. Your pushing was only what kept you from resting. Feel for a moment what it would be to stop pushing, just in your body, here, now. To turn around inside the current so that it is behind you and let it press gently against your back and lift your feet from the riverbed and carry you. You do not sink. That is the surprise everyone discovers when they finally stop. You were so sure that if you let go, you would go under. But the water holds you. It was always going to hold you. Floating was available the entire time. You were just too busy pushing to try it. Tonight, there is nothing to push. The day is already downstream. Tomorrow is not here yet and cannot be pushed into arriving. This hour is the still, wide part of the river, the part that moves so slowly it almost looks like rest. Let your feet lift. Let the current take your weight. You have pushed enough water for one life. You are allowed now to be carried. And notice, the river does not judge you for the years of pushing. It does not hold a grudge. The moment you stop, it simply receives you as if you had never fought it at all. That is the nature of the way. It is always right there, the instant you stop struggling against it, patient as water, ready to carry anyone who finally lets go. Chapter 3: What the Water Knows. The old master returned again and again to water, and the more you sit with it, the more you understand why. Of all the things in the world, water was, to him, the closest thing to the way itself. Not because it is grand, because it is humble. Think about how water behaves. It never insists. Pour it out, and it does not choose a direction and force its way there. It simply finds the lowest place available and goes quietly without complaint. Set a stone in its path, and it does not batter the stone. It goes around, it goes under. It waits, if it must, gathering in a still pool until it rises high enough to continue, and then it continues, as if the waiting had cost it nothing. And yet, this is the part that stayed with him. Water is not weak. It is the patient shaping force behind every canyon on Earth. Given enough time, the softest thing carves the hardest. Not by force, by persistence and by yielding and by never needing to win any single moment of the struggle. The stone is hard, and being hard, it cannot bend, and being unable to bend, it eventually breaks. The water is soft, and being soft, it bends around everything, and being able to bend, it is never broken at all. There is a lesson in this so quiet that most people walk right past it their entire lives. We are taught from very young that strength means hardness. Stand firm, hold your ground, do not yield an inch. And so we make ourselves rigid, and we call the rigidity strength. And then we are baffled when life, which is always moving, snaps us like a dry branch. The rigid thing cannot survive a changing world. Only the yielding thing survives, because only the yielding thing can move when the world moves. You do not have to solve this tonight. You only have to feel it in your own tired body, which has been rigid for so long. Notice how much of your day was spent being hard, braced against interruption, set against inconvenience, holding a fixed idea of how things ought to go, and grinding against every place where reality declined to match it. That hardness is exhausting precisely because reality never stops moving, and the hard thing must fight every single motion. Let yourself, now, be more like water. Not passive, not defeated, just yielding. Let the parts of you that have been set like stone begin to soften and find their level. Let your breath stop being something you manage and become something that simply happens to you, rising and falling on its own, the way a tide rises and falls without anyone deciding. Let your thoughts, if they come, be water too, flowing past, not gripped, going wherever thoughts go when you stop damming them up. The water knows something you have always known and only forgotten, that you do not have to overpower your way through a life. You can flow through it. And the flowing, in the end, goes further than the fighting ever could. Chapter 4. The Strength That Looks Like Weakness. There is a strange reversal at the center of the old master's thought, and in the dark, half asleep is exactly the right state to receive it, because it is the kind of truth that the busy, defended, daytime mind tends to reject before it can land. The reversal is this. The things we are taught to prize as strength are often the beginning of collapse, and the things we are taught to fear as weakness are often the source of real endurance. Consider the strong man, the one who is hard in every situation, who never bends, never admits doubt, never lets the surface crack. He looks powerful, but watch him over time. The hardness that impresses everyone is also a kind of brittleness. He cannot adapt, because adapting would mean admitting the first shape was wrong. He cannot rest, because resting would mean the whole rigid structure might not be needed. He cannot be moved, and so when the great movements of life come, loss, change, age, the slow rearrangement of everything he was sure of, he does not bend with them, he breaks against them. Now consider the supple thing, the young grass that lies flat under the storm and stands again when the wind passes, the reed that bows to the river and is still standing when the oak has fallen. The infant, soft and weak and unable to do anything, who holds within that softness the entire future, all the growth and strength that has not happened yet. The old master looked at the newborn, the most helpless creature there is, and saw in its very softness the deepest reserve of life. Hardness, he said, is the companion of death. Softness is the companion of life. What is stiff and unyielding has already begun to die. What is soft and yielding is still, quietly alive. You spend your days performing hardness. You have to. The world often rewards it, at least for a while. But you can feel the cost. The held jaw, the braced shoulders, the permanent low readiness for battle. And you can feel too how little rest that hardness has ever actually given you. How the armor you wear for protection has also become a weight you can never take off. Tonight you can take it off. Here, in the dark, no one requires you to be hard. There is no situation to face, no ground to hold, no strength to perform. You can be as soft as the newborn, as yielding as the grass, as weak in the old master's beautiful, upside-down sense as the very softest and most alive things in the world. And in that softness, you will find something the hardness never gave you, the ability, finally, to be at rest. Let the armor go. Feel how the body, released from the constant work of holding a hard shape, begins to spread and settle into the bed. This is not weakness. This is the oldest strength there is. This is you, remembering how to be alive without fighting. Chapter 5, Wu Wei, the action of non-action. At the very heart of the way lies a phrase that has puzzled and delighted people for thousands of years. In the old language, it is Wu Wei, and it is usually translated as non-action, or non-doing, or effortless action, though every translation misses something because the idea is meant to be felt more than defined. Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It does not mean lying down and letting the world fall apart. It is not laziness, and it is not surrender in the way we usually mean surrender. It means instead acting without forcing, moving with the grain of things rather than against it, doing what the moment actually asks and no more, and not straining to add your own anxious effort on top of what is already unfolding. Watch a skilled person at their craft, and you will see Wu Wei, even if no one ever named it for them. The master carpenter does not fight the wood. They read the grain and cut along it, and the work seems almost easy because they are not adding resistance where none is needed. The good swimmer does not battle the water. They find the way the body already wants to move through it and let that carry them. In every field, the true master looks to the beginner, almost lazy, because they have stopped doing all the extra, wasted, frantic motion that the beginner mistakes for effort. They have distilled action down to only what is necessary and let everything else fall away. Most of your exhaustion, if you look closely, is not the necessary action. It is the extra. It is the pushing on the river. It is the rehearsing of conversations that will never happen, the bracing for problems that never arrive, the constant low effort of trying to control outcomes, that were never in your hands. That is the doing on top of the doing. That is the part Wu Wei sets down. The old master said the sage does nothing, and yet nothing is left undone. It sounds like a riddle, but it points at something you have felt on your best days. Those rare hours when you stopped forcing and things simply flowed. When the work got done not through gritted teeth, but through a kind of ease. When you looked up at the end and could not quite say how it had all happened, only that it had, and that you were not even tired. That is Wu Wei. It was available all along. You reach it not by trying harder, but by trying softer, by removing the strain, not adding more of it. And there is no better place to practice it than here, at the edge of sleep. Because sleep itself is the purest Wu Wei there is. You cannot force yourself to sleep. Everyone who has lain awake knows this cruelty. The harder you try to sleep, the further it retreats. Because the trying is itself a kind of wakefulness, a doing, a pushing. Sleep comes only when you stop reaching for it. It arrives the moment you finally allow it, the way the tide comes in when you simply stop holding it back. So do not try to fall asleep tonight. Trying is the one thing guaranteed to keep you awake. Instead, do nothing. Let the doing stop. Let this voice continue without you having to receive it. Let sleep approach on its own, unforced, the way everything soft and true approaches. Only when you have finally stopped chasing it. Chapter 6: The Uncarved Block. The old master had a favorite image for the mind at peace, and it is a humble one. A block of wood that has not yet been carved. In the old texts it is called the Uncarved Block, and it stands for a state of being that we all began in and mostly lose, and can, on quiet nights like this, begin to find our way back toward. Think of a plain, rough block of wood. It has not been shaped into anything. It is not a chair, not a bowl, not a carved figure of a god or a beast. It is only itself, whole and simple, full of every possibility, precisely because it has not yet been narrowed into one. There is a wholeness in the uncarved thing that the finished thing, for all its beauty, has traded away. The carving is impressive, yes, but the carving is also a kind of loss, a cutting away, a fixing into a single final form, an end to all the other shapes it might have been. We are carved, all of us, over a lifetime. The world takes the rough, whole, open thing we were as children and cuts us into a shape. This job, this role, this reputation, this fixed idea of who we are and what we are worth and how we must appear. And there is nothing wrong with having a shape. A life needs some form. But we forget that underneath the carving, the plain wood is still there. We mistake the shape for the whole of us. We spend enormous energy defending the carved figure, polishing it, protecting it, terrified of any scratch, as if the shape were all we were, as if beneath it there were nothing. The old master invites you back to the uncarved block, not to erase who you have become, but to remember what lies beneath it, the simple, whole, unpolished you that existed before any of the shaping, and that exists still, quietly, under every role you perform. That deeper self needs no defending. It cannot be scratched, because it is not the carving, it is the wood. Here in the dark, you can set the carved figure down for the night. You do not have to be the shape right now. You do not have to be the title, the role, the reputation, the carefully maintained image you present to the world. All of that can rest on its shelf until morning. What remains, when the shape is set down, is the uncarved block, plain, whole, simple, and utterly at peace, because it wants nothing and defends nothing and needs to become nothing at all. There is a deep relief in returning to the simple thing beneath the complicated one. Feel it now. All the effort of being someone in particular, let it soften. You do not have to be interesting tonight. You do not have to be impressive or capable or even coherent. You can be as plain and formless as unshaped wood, resting in the dark, full of quiet possibility, needing nothing. This is what you were before the world carved you, and it is what you still are underneath. And it is more than enough to fall asleep as Chapter 7, Emptiness that holds everything. There is a teaching in the old book that seems at first like a simple observation about pottery and turns out to be about your whole life. It goes something like this. We shape clay into a pot, but it is the empty space inside that makes the pot useful. We build a room with walls and a roof, but it is the empty space within the walls that we actually live in. The value is not in the material. The value is in the emptiness the material makes room for. Sit with that for a moment, here in the dark, where there is nothing to do but let ideas drift by. We spend our lives obsessed with the clay, with filling, acquiring, accomplishing, adding. More possessions, more plans, more knowledge, more noise. We treat emptiness as a problem to be solved, a gap to be filled, a silence to be covered over as quickly as we can. An empty evening frightens us. An empty calendar makes us anxious. An empty mind seems to us like a kind of failure, but the old master saw it the other way around. The emptiness is not the absence of usefulness. The emptiness is where the usefulness lives. A cup filled to the brim can hold nothing more. Only the empty cup can receive. A mind crammed full of thought and plan and worry has no room for peace. Only the emptied mind can rest. The space you have been trying so hard to fill is the very thing that would let you finally breathe. Tonight, you are allowed to be empty. Not lacking, not deficient. Empty in the good way. The way the useful pot is empty. The way the quiet room is empty. The way the clear evening sky is empty. And being empty holds all the stars. You do not have to fill this hour with anything. You do not have to make the silence productive. You do not have to solve, or plan, or fill the gap where daytime noise used to be. You can simply let the emptiness open inside you and rest in it and discover that it was never a void at all. It was room to breathe, room to be held, room, at last, for sleep. Let your mind grow spacious. Let the crowded thoughts loosen and drift apart until there is room between them. dark and wide and quiet. In that spaciousness, there is nothing to hold and nothing to defend. There is only the soft, useful emptiness that has been waiting patiently underneath all your filling for you to finally stop and let it hold you. Chapter 8: The Valley and the Low Places. The old master loved low places. It is one of the most surprising things about him. In a world that has always taught people to climb, to rise, to reach the summit and stand above everyone else, he pointed the other way, downward, to the valley, to the low ground where the water gathers and the life grows thick. Why the valley? Because the valley receives. The mountain peak is impressive, but it is barren. Nothing grows there, the wind strips it, the snow leaves it bare. Everything that falls on the peak runs off and flows down into the low places. And it is the valley, humble and receptive, that catches all of it. The water, the soil, the seeds, and turns it into green and living abundance. The high place gives up everything. The low place gathers everything. Greatness, the old master said, must learn to make itself low, the way the sea makes itself lower than all the rivers, and for that reason all the rivers flow into it, and it becomes the greatest water of all. There is a quiet freedom in this that most people never taste, because they spend their whole lives climbing. To always be rising, always be proving, always be reaching for the higher place, it is exhausting and it is lonely, because the summit has room for only one, and the moment you reach it, you must begin the anxious work of defending it against everyone climbing behind you. But the low place asks for none of that. In the valley, you do not have to hold anyone off. You do not have to prove you deserve your ground. You can simply be low and receive and be full. Tonight, let yourself sink to the low place. You have climbed enough today. You have proven and reached and held your position long enough. Now let all of that run off you like water off a peak, and let yourself settle into the lowest, softest, most receptive place there is. The bed, the dark, the deep valley of sleep, where you do not have to be above anyone, or ahead of anyone, or better than anyone, and where, precisely because you have stopped climbing, everything good can finally gather around you and hold you. Feel yourself grow humble and heavy and low. Feel the whole striving upward of the day reverse into a soft settling down. There is nothing beneath you to fear. The low place is not falling. The low place is home. It is where the water rests, where the life gathers, where the tired thing is finally allowed to lie still and be filled. Chapter 9: The 10,000 Things. In the old texts, the whole teeming variety of the world, every creature, every object, every event, every person, every leaf and stone and passing thought, is called by a single sweeping phrase: the 10,000 things. It is not meant as an exact count. It means simply all of it. The endless multiplicity of existence, the countless shapes that arise and change and pass away. And the old master noticed something about the 10,000 things that can be deeply calming to remember as you lie here in the dark. They all arise from the same quiet source, and they all return to it. Everything that exists came out of the way, unfolded into its brief particular form, and will, in time, fold back. The wave rises from the sea, takes its shape for a moment, and sinks back into the water it never really left. So it is with all things. So it is, though we forget it, with us. During the day you live entirely among the 10,000 things. You are surrounded by particulars, each one seeming urgent, each one demanding a response. This task, that worry, this person, that problem. And it is overwhelming precisely because there are 10,000 of them, and they never stop arising, and you cannot possibly attend to them all. If you try to grip each one, to manage each one, to hold the whole churning multiplicity in your two hands, of course you are exhausted. No one could do it. The 10,000 things are more than any single mind can hold. But underneath the multiplicity, there is the one quiet source from which all of it flows. And you can rest there. You do not have to hold the 10,000 things tonight. You do not have to track them, manage them, keep them all in view. You can let them arise and pass as they will. The way waves rise and pass on a sea, you are not required to control. And you can sink your attention beneath them, down to the still, dark, single source underneath, and rest in that instead. Let the particulars of your day, the 10,000 small things, rise and fall and drift away. You do not have to catch a single one. Each was a wave, each is already sinking back. And you were never only one more thing among the 10,000. You are also the quiet water underneath, from which all of it rises and to which all of it returns. Rest there tonight. Let the many things go and sink into the one still source and be at peace. Chapter 10. The Name That Cannot Be Named. The very first lines of the old book are a kind of gentle warning, and they are among the most famous words in all of human thought. The way that can be spoken is not the eternal way. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Before the old master will teach you anything, he tells you that the deepest thing cannot really be taught. That the moment you pin it down in words, you have already lost the living truth of it. The way a butterfly pinned to a board is no longer the flying thing you tried to catch. This might sound frustrating. We want answers we can hold. We want the truth stated plainly, so we can file it away and feel that we have it. But the old master is pointing at something your tired mind can actually feel relief in tonight. He is saying the most important things do not fit into words, into concepts, into the grasping, naming, defining machinery of the daytime mind. And therefore, you can stop trying to grasp them. You can let the naming mind rest. All day, your mind names. It labels everything it meets: good, bad, mine, threat, task, problem, this, that. It cannot help it. Naming is how the thinking mind holds the world, cataloguing every experience the instant it arrives, sorting the endless flow into neat little boxes with neat little words on them. And it is useful, this naming, for getting through a day, but it is also a kind of noise, a constant, low chatter of labels, and it never stops. And it stands between you and the simple, wordless experience of just being here, breathing in the dark. Tonight, you can let the naming fall silent. You do not have to label anything. You do not have to know what this feeling is called, or what that sensation means, or whether this moment is good or bad. You can let experience simply be unnamed, the way it was before you learned any words at all. Just warmth, just weight, just the soft dark and the sound of a voice. None of it needing a name, none of it needing to be understood. There is a deep peace on the far side of language, in the place the words cannot reach. The old master spent his whole teaching pointing toward it, knowing all the while that his own words could only point, never arrive. Let his pointing finger go now. Let the words of this very sentence dissolve as they pass. Sink beneath the naming, beneath the labeling, beneath the endless daytime commentary, into the wordless, nameless quiet underneath, the eternal way that no one can speak, and that everyone, in deep and dreamless sleep, returns to every single night. Chapter 11. Returning to the Root. There is a phrase in the old book that has the rhythm of a lullaby, though it was written as philosophy. Returning to the root. The 10,000 things flourish and grow, the old master said, and then each returns to its root. And returning to the root he called stillness, and stillness he called returning to life. Think of a plant through the seasons. In spring and summer, it pushes upward and outward, all growth and reaching and vivid display, spending its energy on flower and leaf and fruit. But then the year turns, and the plant does something wise. It returns to the root. It draws its life back down, out of the exposed and reaching parts, into the deep quiet of the root beneath the soil, and there, in the dark and the stillness, it rests and gathers and waits. It is not dying, it is returning, and it is precisely this return to the root, this season of stillness underground, that lets it live again when spring comes back. You spend your days in the summer of yourself, reaching, growing, spending, displaying, pushing your energy up and out into the world of the 10,000 things. And that is right, in its season. But you were never meant to stay in summer forever. You were meant also to return to the root, to draw your reaching energy back down out of the exposed and busy surface of your life into the deep quiet beneath, and there to rest and gather and be still. That is what sleep is. It is your nightly return to the root. Every night, whether you understand it or not, you draw yourself back down out of the reaching daytime self into the deep, dark stillness beneath all you're doing, and there's something in you rests and gathers and is renewed so that you can live again tomorrow. It is the most natural thing in the world. It is what the plant does, what the season does, what all living things do. You are not failing to keep going, you are returning to the root, exactly as you are meant to. So let yourself return now. Feel your energy drawing down and inward, out of the busy surface, down toward the deep, quiet root of you. The reaching can stop. The display can stop. The summer can end for the night. Let stillness come, which the old master called returning to life, and rest in the dark root of yourself. gathering quietly for a spring that will come on its own, in its own time, without you having to force a single thing. Chapter 12. The softest thing overcomes the hardest. We come back now to the line that gives this whole night its name, and we let it settle deeper than before. The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world. It is one of the old master's boldest claims and one of his truest, and it runs against everything the loud waking world believes. The waking world believes in hardness. It believes the strong overcome the weak, the rigid defeat the yielding, the forceful win, and the soft are trampled. And in the short run, in any single moment, that often seems to be so. The hammer breaks the cup. The strong hand crushes the soft one. Force, in the instant, appears to triumph. But the old master was not looking at the instant. He was looking at time, at the long, slow unfolding of things, and across that longer view, the truth reverses. Across time, it is the soft that prevails. Water, the softest thing, carves the canyon and outlasts the mountain. The gentle root splits the hard rock and brings down the wall. The yielding grass survives the storm that shatters the rigid tree. Given enough time, softness always wins, because softness can endure and adapt and continue, while hardness can only hold its shape until one day it cracks. There is enormous relief in this for a tired person in the dark, because you have been trying most of your life to overcome your difficulties through hardness, through force, through effort, through gritted teeth determination, through the sheer strength of your straining will. And it has worn you down, because hardness against a hard world is just two rigid things grinding each other to dust. But the old master offers another way. Meet the hard thing with softness. Meet the immovable difficulty, not with more force, but with patience, with yielding, with the quiet persistence of water which never wins a single battle and yet, in the end, wins everything. You do not have to be hard to be strong. You have that exactly backward, as most people do. Your real strength, the kind that endures, the kind that outlasts every hard thing set against it, is your softness, your capacity to yield and adapt and flow and continue. The hardness was never strength. It was only brittleness pretending to be strength, and it was breaking you. Tonight, be soft and know that you are not being weak. Be yielding and know that you are not surrendering. You are becoming like the water that outlasts the stone. Let the hardness drain out of your body and your mind. Let yourself go soft as the softest thing in the world, and rest in the deep, quiet certainty that softness, in the end, is what endures. Chapter 13, Knowing When to Stop. The old master offered a warning so simple it is easy to miss, and so important that ignoring it quietly ruins a great many lives. He said, know when to stop. Fill a cup to its very brim, and it becomes hard to carry without spilling. Sharpen a blade to its keenest edge, and it will not keep that edge for long. Amass gold and jewels beyond all measure, and you will never be able to guard them. He was describing the strange trap of never knowing when enough is enough. There is a point in almost everything past which more becomes worse. A little food nourishes, too much sickens. A little effort accomplishes, too much strains and breaks. A little ambition gives a life direction. Too much turns it into a treadmill that never stops and never satisfies. The wise thing is not to reach for the maximum of everything. The wise thing is to know the point of enough and to stop there, gracefully, before the good thing curdles into its opposite. But we are not taught to stop. We are taught to maximize, to optimize, to always want more, to treat any limit as a failure of ambition. And so we fill the cup past the brim and spend our lives anxiously trying not to spill. We sharpen every edge to breaking. We pile up more than we can ever guard and then lie awake guarding it. The not stopping, the endless reaching for more, is itself the source of a deep and grinding unrest. Tonight is a place to practice stopping. You have done enough today. That is a complete sentence, and it is true, and you are allowed to believe it. Not everything got finished. It never does. There is always more that could be reached for, more that could be optimized, one more thing that could be pushed. But you have reached the point of enough for one day, and the wise thing now is simply to stop, to set the effort down, cleanly, without guilt, the way you set down a cup before it overflows. Feel the relief of stopping, not stopping in defeat, not stopping because you failed, but stopping because you are wise enough to know that the day is full, the cup is at the brim, and to reach for more now would only be to spill what you already have. Let the reaching stop. Let the wanting more grow quiet. You have enough. You have done enough. You are enough. And knowing when to stop, the old master would say, is a deeper kind of wealth than all the reaching in the world. Chapter 14. The Fullness of the Empty Cup. There is a well-worn story, told in many forms, of a learned man who came to a master hoping to be taught, and who could not stop talking about all he already knew. The master poured tea into the visitor's cup and kept pouring until the tea spilled over the brim and across the table and onto the floor, and still the master poured. The visitor cried out that the cup was full, it could hold no more, and the master said, yes. Like this cup, you are full of your own ideas. How can I show you anything until you first empty your cup? The old master never told that exact story, but its whole spirit is his. To receive anything new, any peace, any rest, any deeper truth, you must first make room. The full cup can hold nothing more, and most of us walk through life with our cups full to overflowing, crammed with opinions, plans, certainties, worries, the endless contents of a busy mind, and we wonder why nothing new can get in, why we feel so full and yet so unsatisfied, so crowded and yet so empty in the way that matters. Emptying the cup is not losing anything real. It is setting down, for a while, the contents you have been gripping, the need to know, the need to be right, the need to have every question answered and every problem solved before you can rest. It is admitting that you do not have to hold all of it, that the world will not fall apart if you set your certainties down for one night, that there is a deep relief in simply not knowing, in being empty and open and unhurried. So empty your cup tonight. Let the day's contents pour out, the opinions you defended, the problems you turned over and over, the plans you rehearsed, the whole crowded fullness of your thinking mind. Let it drain away, and feel how the emptying is not a loss, but a lightening. The empty cup is not sad. The empty cup is ready. It can receive the night, receive the quiet, receive the sleep that a full and overflowing mind could never make room for. Be the empty cup now, spacious, unhurried, holding nothing, ready for rest. There is a strange and beautiful fullness in that emptiness, the fullness of possibility, the fullness of peace, the quiet abundance that only ever comes to the one who has finally made room. Chapter 15, The Sage Who Does Not Hoard. The old master painted a picture of the wise person, the sage, scattered throughout the old book in small, quiet strokes. And one of the most striking things about this sage is what they do with what they have. They do not hoard. The sage, he said, does not accumulate. The more they do for others, the more they have. The more they give to others, the greater their own abundance. This runs against a very deep human instinct, the instinct to grip, to store, to keep, to build higher and higher walls around a growing pile of things, out of the fear that there will not be enough, that if we let anything go, we will be left with nothing. And so we clutch. We hold on to money, to possessions, to grievances, to status, to being right, gripping it all tightly against the terror of loss. And the gripping itself makes us poor, poor in peace, poor in ease, poor in the open-handed freedom that only comes when the hands are not clenched. The sage has discovered a secret hidden in plain sight, that the open hand holds more than the clenched fist. The clenched fist can hold only what fits inside it, and must strain constantly to keep even that. The open hand holds nothing and therefore everything, because it is free and light and can receive whatever comes. To stop hoarding is not to become poor. It is to become free of the exhausting work of guarding a pile that never made you happy anyway. You do not need to solve your whole relationship with holding and letting go tonight. You only need to notice, here in the dark, how much you are still gripping, and to loosen the grip just slightly, just for the night. The grievances you have been holding, set them down. They were only weighing your hands. The need to be right about the day's small conflicts, let it go. It will not keep you warm. The anxious guarding of all you have accumulated, release it into the night. It will still be there in the morning, and you will have slept. Let your hands, even literally, unclench. Feel the fingers loosen where they have been half curled all day, holding on to nothing and everything. The sage does not hoard, because the sage has learned that letting go is not loss, it is lightness. And tonight, you can be light. You can be open-handed. You can let it all rest outside your grip for a few dark hours and discover, come morning, that nothing you truly needed was ever lost by loosening your hold. Chapter 16. bending like the green branch. In a storm, the old master observed, it is the green and living branch that survives, and the dry and rigid one that snaps. The green branch is supple. When the wind comes, it bends, all the way down if it must, letting the force pass over and through it. And when the wind has spent itself, the branch springs back, unbroken, exactly as it was. The dry branch cannot bend. It meets the same wind with rigid resistance, and because it will not yield, it breaks. This is one of the oldest and truest images of how to live through what cannot be avoided. Storms come. This is simply true. Difficulty comes, loss comes, change comes. The great winds of a life come whether we are ready or not. And there is no version of a human life that escapes them. The only question is how we meet them, rigid or supple, dry or green, unbending or willing to bow. The rigid person meets every hardship with resistance. This should not be happening. I will not accept this. I refuse to bend. And there is a kind of nobility in it, but there is also a snapping, because the world does not care about our refusal, and the winds blow just as hard against the one who resists them as against the one who bends. The difference is only that the one who bends is still standing when the wind has passed. To bend is not to be defeated. The green branch does not lose to the storm, it survives it, precisely by not fighting it head-on. It yields in the moment so that it may endure across time. And there is a deep, quiet strength in this that the rigid person never learns. The strength of the thing that can bow all the way to the ground and rise again, that can absorb the worst of what comes and remain, in its essence, unbroken. Whatever winds have blown against you today, and something always has, you do not have to meet them tonight with rigid resistance. You do not have to lie here stiff with refusal, fighting what already happened, bracing against what has not yet come. You can be the green branch. You can bend. You can let the day's winds pass over you and through you without breaking you, softening into the storm instead of stiffening against it, trusting that when the wind has passed, you will still be here, supple and living and whole. Let yourself bend now. Let the rigidity go out of you. Feel how the living thing survives not by standing hard against the world, but by yielding to it gracefully and springing back. You are green wood, not dry. You can bend as far as this night asks and rise again in the morning, unbroken. Chapter 17. The Usefulness of the Hollow. Return with me to that quiet teaching about the empty spaces and let it deepen, because it holds one of the gentlest keys to rest the old master ever offered. 30 spokes, he said, share a single hub, and it is the empty center of the hub that makes the wheel turn. We shape clay into a vessel, and it is the hollow inside that makes it useful. We cut doors and windows into a house, and it is the empty openings that make it a place we can live. Everywhere you look, he was saying, it is what is not there that gives the thing its use. We are trained to see only the substance, the spokes, the clay, the walls. We measure a life by what it contains, what it has accumulated, what fills it up. But the old master turns your eyes to the hollow, the gap, the empty center, and shows you that the usefulness The very life of the thing lives in the space rather than the substance. The wheel turns on emptiness. The vessel holds through its hollow. The house shelters through its open rooms. Your own life needs its hollows too, and you have perhaps forgotten this. The empty hour, the unfilled evening, the gap in the day with nothing scheduled into it, the pause between one thing and the next. These are not wasted spaces, not failures to be productive. They are the hollows that make the whole wheel of your life able to turn. Without them, there is only substance grinding against substance, spoke jammed against spoke, no empty center for anything to move around. A life with no hollows cannot turn, it can only seize. Tonight is a great hollow, a wide empty center in the turning wheel of your days. And its emptiness is not a lack, it is the very thing that makes the rest of your life able to move. Do not try to fill it. Do not feel that this quiet, unproductive, empty hour is somehow a waste. It is the hollow of the hub, the space in the vessel, the open room in the house of your life, and everything useful turns on it. Rest in the hollow now. Let the emptiness of this hour be exactly what it is, and know that it is not nothing. It is the necessary space, the quiet center, the useful hollow around which your whole life quietly turns. In doing nothing here, in this wide empty dark, you are doing the most necessary thing of all. Chapter 18, Governing a Small Fish. The old master offered a curious piece of advice about how to rule a great kingdom, and though you are not a ruler of kingdoms, it turns out to be about how to hold your own life, and it is worth letting it drift through you now. Govern a great state, he said, the way you would cook a small fish. And anyone who has ever cooked a small, delicate fish knows exactly what he meant. You must not keep poking at it. You must not flip it constantly, prod it, turn it over and over in your anxiety to get it right. If you keep interfering, the fish falls apart. You must let it be, mostly, and trust the heat, and touch it as little as possible, and it will come out whole. So it is, he said, with a kingdom, and so it is with a life. Most of our meddling makes things worse. We poke constantly at our own days, our own plans, our own relationships, our own feelings, turning everything over and over in anxious management, unable to leave anything alone long enough for it to simply cook. We interfere with our own peace the way an anxious cook ruins the fish. Not through neglect, but through too much handling, too much prodding, too much restless, well-meant interference. Consider how much of your mental exhaustion comes from exactly this: the constant checking, the constant adjusting, the endless turning over of situations that would resolve themselves perfectly well if you could only leave them alone, the relationships you manage to death, the plans you revise past all usefulness, the feelings you poke at until they fall apart in your hands. So much of it would come out whole if you could simply trust the heat and stop flipping the fish. Tonight, there is nothing to poke at. The day is cooking on its own. Leave it. Tomorrow is not on the heat yet. You cannot flip it early. The little fish of this present moment needs only to be left alone, untouched, trusted, allowed to simply be as it is. Take your anxious hands off your own life for a few dark hours. stop turning things over. Stop checking whether the piece is working. Stop prodding at your own attempt to rest. Let it cook. Let it be. Practice the deep art of leaving things alone. Your day, your worries, your very sleep, none of them needing your restless management, all of them coming out whole precisely because, for once, you finally stopped interfering and let them be. Chapter 19. The Journey of 1,000 Miles. Perhaps the most famous line the old master ever gave the world is this: "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." It has been repeated so often that it has almost worn smooth, like a stone handled by too many hands, and we forget how much quiet comfort is folded inside it. Because it is not really about ambition or about starting big projects, though that is how it is usually quoted. It is about the mercy of the single step. 1,000 miles is overwhelming. If you stand at the beginning and try to hold the entire distance in your mind at once, every mile, every hill, every weary hour still to come, you will be crushed before you have even begun. The whole of it is too much for anyone. No one can walk 1,000 miles in their imagination all at once. The mind buckles under the sheer size of it. And this is exactly how we exhaust ourselves, not by walking, but by standing still and trying to carry the whole distance in our heads. But you never actually have to walk 1,000 miles. You only ever have to take the step you are taking. That is all that is ever asked, all that is ever even possible. The single step is light. The single step is doable. The single step asks almost nothing of you. And 1,000 of them, taken one at a time, each one small and manageable and near, will carry you across the whole impossible distance without your ever once having to bear the weight of the whole. Your life is like this, and your worries are like this, and even this night is like this. You do not have to solve your whole life tonight. You do not have to carry the entire distance of tomorrow, or next week, or the years ahead. All of that is the 1,000 miles, and trying to hold it whole is what has your chest so tight. You only have to take the single step in front of you, and right now, the only step in front of you is to lie here and breathe and rest. That is the whole of it. That is all that is being asked. Set down the 1,000 miles. You will never have to walk them all at once, and no one is asking you to. Hold only the single step, which is this breath, and then the next single step, which is the next breath, each one small and near and light. The distance takes care of itself when you stop trying to carry it whole. And tonight, the only step, the only journey, the only distance is the short, soft one from waking into sleep. And it, too, is taken not all at once, but gently, one breath at a time. Chapter 20. When the way is forgotten. The old master watched the people of his own time drifting further and further from the natural way, and he described what happens when a person or a whole society forgets it. When the great way is forgotten, he said, we invent elaborate codes of virtue and duty to take its place. When people no longer live in natural harmony, we write endless rules to force the harmony that no longer comes on its own. The rules multiply precisely in proportion to how far we have wandered from the simple, natural rightness that needed no rules at all. There is something in this that touches your tired mind directly, though it was written about kingdoms. When you are close to your own natural way, rested, settled, in tune with yourself, you do not need elaborate systems to manage your life. Things flow. You know what to do without an anxious internal committee debating it. But when you have drifted far from that natural ease, overtired, overstretched, pulled in 100 directions, you begin to manage yourself with more and more rules, more and more forcing, more and more effortful systems of control, trying to manufacture by sheer will the harmony that used to come on its own. Notice how much of your daily effort is exactly this: rules and forcing laid over a life that has drifted from its natural rhythm. The strict systems for making yourself do what you no longer want to do. The rigid discipline holding together what used to hold together on its own. The exhausting internal management of a self that has wandered so far from rest that it can no longer simply rest and must instead be forced, scheduled, disciplined into it. The more effortful your self-control has become, the further you have drifted from the natural way that needed no control at all. The answer is not more rules, it is return. Not to manage yourself more tightly, but to drift back toward the natural rhythm underneath. The simple, unforced rightness that does not need a system because it is not fighting itself. And you cannot force that return. Forcing is the very thing that carried you away from it. You can only stop and soften and let yourself settle back toward the natural way. The way a stirred pond settles back to stillness the moment you stop stirring it. Tonight, stop stirring. Set down all the rules and systems and disciplines with which you manage your unrested self. You do not need them here. Sleep needs no discipline. It is the most natural thing you do. Let yourself drift back, unforced, toward the deep, natural rhythm that was there underneath all along. The simple rightness of a living creature lying down in the dark to rest, which needs no rule to tell it how and never did. Chapter 21. The Three Treasures. The old master said he held 3 treasures and guarded them and prized them above all else. The first was compassion. The second was simplicity or moderation, not reaching for too much. The third was humility, not daring to put himself ahead of everyone else in the world. 3 plain treasures, no gold among them, and yet he called them the deepest wealth a person could hold. Let us take them softly, one at a time, as things to loosen into rather than tasks to accomplish. The first treasure, compassion, begins tonight not with others, but with you. You have been so hard on yourself. All day a quiet voice has judged you. Not enough, too slow, should have done more, should be further along. That voice is the opposite of the first treasure. Tonight, you can set it down and offer yourself instead the compassion you would offer a tired friend. You did your best with a hard day. That is enough. Let yourself be treated gently, at least by your own mind, at least for these dark hours. The second treasure, simplicity, is the deep relief of not reaching for too much. So much of your unrest comes from wanting more than the moment holds. More done, more had, more achieved, more certain. Tonight you can want less. You can let this simple moment, warmth, weight, dark, breath, be entirely enough and reach for nothing beyond it. There is a profound peace in moderation, in the wanting of little, in letting the plain sufficiency of right now be all you ask for. The third treasure, humility, is the quiet freedom of not having to be first or best or ahead. All day you may have measured yourself against others, striving to keep up, to prove, to not fall behind. Tonight, you can lay that whole exhausting race down. You do not have to be ahead of anyone here in the dark. You can be humble, low, ordinary, one small resting creature among all the others, asking to be no more than that, and finding, in asking to be no more, a peace that all the striving to be more never gave you. Compassion, simplicity, humility. Hold these three soft treasures now as you drift. Be gentle with yourself, want little, need to be no one special. In these three plain things, the old master said, lies the deepest wealth there is. And unlike all the wealth the world chases, this wealth actually lets you sleep. Chapter 22. Contentment is the only wealth. He who knows he has enough, the old master said, is rich. It is a short line, and a quietly revolutionary one, because it locates wealth not in what you have, but in your relationship to what you have. By this measure, a person with very little who feels they have enough is rich, and a person with a great deal who always wants more is poor, endlessly, restlessly poor, no matter how high the pile of their possessions climbs. We spend our lives chasing the wrong kind of wealth. We believe that if we could just acquire enough money, enough success, enough security, enough recognition, then finally we would feel that we had enough and we would rest. But it never works that way, and some part of you already knows this, because you have watched it fail your whole life. Each thing acquired only resets the wanting. The goal reached only reveals the next goal. The feeling of enough recedes exactly as fast as you advance toward it, because it was never out there in the pile of things at all. It was always a matter of the mind, of where you choose to rest your attention, of whether you look at what is missing or at what is already quietly here. Contentment is not a reward you earn by acquiring enough. It is a way of seeing that you can practice right now with exactly what you already have. And you have, right now, in this moment, everything you actually need. You are warm, you are safe enough to close your eyes, you are breathing, you have a place to lie down in the dark. The moment holds already a quiet sufficiency if you will only stop looking past it toward what is not here. Tonight, be rich in the only way that ever brings peace, not by having more, but by noticing that you already have enough. Enough for this moment, which is the only moment there is. Let the wanting more grow quiet. Let the restless comparison, the reaching, the sense of not yet enough, settle and still. Look at what is actually here, this breath, this warmth, this rest, and let it be enough, because it is. The one who knows they have enough is rich and can sleep the deep sleep of the satisfied. The one who always wants more lies awake, guarding and reaching, poor amid all their plenty. Tonight, choose the first. Rest in enough. You have, in this quiet moment, everything you need, and knowing it is the truest wealth there is. Chapter 23, The Wisdom of Not Knowing. The old master said something that turns the whole idea of wisdom upside down. To know that you do not know, he said, is the best. To not know, yet think you know, is a kind of sickness. The truly wise are those who have made peace with the vast reach of their own not knowing, while the foolish are those who have covered over their ignorance with the comfortable illusion of certainty. There is a great tiredness that comes from always having to know. To have an answer for everything, an opinion on everything, a firm position on every question, it is a heavy thing to carry, and it never rests. Because the world keeps generating new questions, and the knowing mind must keep rushing to have them answered, to close every gap, to leave no uncertainty open. It is exhausting to be certain about a world that is, in truth, mostly mystery. The old master offers the deep relief of not knowing. You do not have to have it all figured out. You do not have to resolve every question before you sleep. You do not have to know how tomorrow will go, or how the hard situation will turn out, or what the right answer is to the problem turning over in your mind. You can let the questions simply stay open, unresolved, unanswered, and rest anyway. The not knowing is not a failure, it is honesty. It is the wise person's peace with a world too large to ever fully know. Feel how much your mind wants to close every open loop before it will let you rest. To know, to decide, to resolve, to have the answer in hand. And feel, too, that this closing never actually finishes, that there is always one more thing unresolved, that if you wait to sleep until everything is known, you will never sleep at all. So let the loops stay open. Let the questions stay questions. Let the not knowing be a soft, wide, restful thing, rather than an anxious one. You do not have to know tonight. You can lie down in the middle of a vast unknowing, an unresolved and mysterious world, and rest there as peacefully as a child who has not yet learned to need every answer. To know that you do not know is the deepest wisdom, the old master said, and it is also, tonight, the doorway to sleep, because only the mind that stops demanding to know everything can, finally, gratefully, let go. Chapter 24. The muddy water grows clear. The old master asked a question that is really an instruction if you listen to it slowly. Who can make the muddy water clear? And his answer was as gentle as the question. Let it be still, and it will gradually become clear on its own. You cannot clear muddy water by reaching into it and stirring. You cannot clear it by force, by effort, by working at it. The more you handle it, the muddier it gets. The only way to clear muddy water is to leave it alone and let the mud settle and wait and let stillness do what no effort ever could. Your mind, at the end of a long day, is muddy water, stirred up by everything that happened, clouded with the sediment of 100 small events, churning and unclear. And your instinct, so often, is to reach in and work at it, to think harder, to sort through everything, to actively try to calm yourself down, to force the clarity you want. But this is exactly the stirring that keeps the water muddy. You cannot think your way to a clear mind. The thinking is the stirring, the effort is the mud. The clearing comes only through stillness, through leaving the water alone, through doing nothing at all and letting the sediment settle, slowly, on its own, in its own time, without your interference. You do not have to clear your mind tonight. You could not, by force, even if you tried. The trying only stirs it. You have only to be still, and let the churning settle, and wait, and trust that stillness will do what no effort ever could, that the muddy water of your mind will grow clear on its own if you will only stop stirring it. So stop reaching in, stop working at your own mind, stop trying to actively calm yourself, sort yourself out, force the peace. All of that is stirring. Instead, be still. Let the sediment of the day drift downward on its own. Let the churning slow. Let the water go quiet and undisturbed, and watch, without effort, as it clears itself from the bottom up, the mud settling, the water growing still and dark and clear. There is nothing for you to do here but be still and let it happen. The clarity is coming on its own, the way it always does when you finally stop stirring. Let the muddy water of this long day settle in the dark, undisturbed, growing clear by itself, carrying you down with it into the still, clear depths of sleep. Chapter 25. Doing the great while it is small. The old master gave a piece of advice that quietly dissolves a great deal of dread. Deal with the difficult, he said, while it is still easy. Do the great thing while it is still small. The largest tree grows from the tiniest sprout. The tower of 9 stories rises from a small heap of earth. Everything vast begins as something small, and the wise person attends to things while they are still small and soft and manageable before they harden into something overwhelming. We tend to do the opposite. We let the small thing grow until it is enormous, and then we panic at the size of it. The little worry we did not tend becomes, by the small hours of the night, a towering catastrophe. The manageable task we avoided becomes an impossible mountain. The small feeling we would not look at becomes, over weeks, a heavy weight we cannot name. We are frightened by the size of our troubles, forgetting that they were all once small and that they grew large mostly in the dark of our own avoidance and our own imagining. But here is the gentle turn, the part that helps you now. In the reverse direction, the same law brings peace. If the great grows from the small, then you never have to face the great all at once. You only ever face the small. The towering worry that fills the night is made, if you look closely, of small things. A single concern, a single unknown, a single next step. And each of those, taken alone, while it is still small, is manageable, soft, nothing to fear. The mountain is only ever climbed one small stone at a time. The tower is only ever built one small heap of earth at a time, and the hardest night is only ever passed one small breath at a time. So do not let your worries tower over you in the dark tonight. They are only large because the night makes everything large, because the imagination piles the small into the enormous. Bring them back down to their true size. Look at the small thing, just this one concern, just this one breath, just this one moment, and see that it is in itself small and soft and entirely bearable. The great was always only small things gathered, and the small you can handle, the small you can even rest beside. Let the towering shapes in the dark come apart, back into the small and harmless things they are made of. Take only this small breath, this small moment, this small and gentle now. The great night of rest ahead of you is made of nothing but these small, soft moments, one after another, each one easy, and you have only ever to be in the small one you are in. Chapter 26. The heavy is the root of the light. The heavy is the root of the light, the old master said, and stillness is the master of restlessness. It is an image of grounding, of a deep, steady weight at the base of things that keeps the lighter, quicker parts from spinning off into chaos. The wise person, he suggested, stays rooted in the heavy and the still, even while moving through the light and the busy, never losing the deep ground, never letting the restless surface become the whole of them. Think of a great ship. What keeps it steady in a rolling sea is the heavy ballast deep in its hull, far below the waterline, unseen. Without that low heavy weight, the ship would capsize at the first strong wave, tossed about by every gust. It is precisely the heaviness at the bottom that lets the whole vessel move through the storm with a kind of calm. The heavy is the root of the light. The deep, steady weight is what allows the graceful movement above. You have a heaviness like this in you, a deep, steady ground beneath all your restless surface activity. And in a busy life, it is easy to lose touch with it, to live entirely up on the tossing surface, blown about by every gust of event and emotion, spinning, reactive, ungrounded. The restlessness becomes the whole of you, and there seems to be no still center anywhere, nothing heavy and steady to settle back down into. And so even lying still, the mind keeps tossing, because it has forgotten the deep ballast underneath. Tonight, you can sink back down to the heavy root. Feel the literal weight of your body drawn downward by the patient pull of the earth, settling into the bed, heavy and low and grounded. Let that physical heaviness be a doorway to the deeper heaviness, the steady ground beneath your restless mind, the still center that does not toss, that does not spin, that has been there all along beneath the surface storm. The heavy is the root of the light. Sink to the root now. As your body grows heavy, let your mind grow heavy too, not dull, but grounded, settling down out of the tossing surface into the deep, still ballast underneath. Stillness is the master of restlessness, the old master said. Let the deep stillness at the base of you master the restlessness at the top. Sink down to where it is heavy and quiet and unmoving, far below the waves, and rest there, grounded, steady, held by your own deep weight, while the surface, if it must, goes on tossing far above, without you. Chapter 27. Knowing others, knowing yourself. To know others is intelligence, the old master said. To know yourself is true wisdom. To master others is strength. To master yourself is true power. It is a gentle reordering of what we usually prize. The world praises those who understand others, who influence others, who master and move and command the people around them. But the old master turns the gaze inward and says, the deeper knowledge, the deeper mastery is of yourself, and it is quieter and rarer and worth far more. There is rest in turning the gaze inward like this, especially at the end of a day spent facing outward. All day you have been reading others, managing others, responding to others, your attention flung outward onto the endless faces and demands of the world. It is a kind of exhaustion all its own, this constant outward vigilance, this endless tracking of what everyone else needs and thinks and wants. And it leaves you by night strangely far from yourself, having spent the whole day watching everyone but the one who is actually lying here in the dark. Tonight, the outward watching can stop. There is no one out there to know, to read, to manage, to master. There is only you here in the quiet and the gentle wisdom of simply knowing yourself. Not analyzing yourself, not judging yourself. Just being quietly present to your own self the way you would sit with a friend in comfortable silence. The whole outward-facing apparatus of the day can power down. You can come home to yourself. And the mastery the old master prizes is not a harsh self-control, not the whip and the discipline. To master yourself, in his sense, is something softer. It is to no longer be tossed about by your own reactions, to have a quiet, steady center that does not need to grip or force or fight. It is the calm of the person who has made peace with themselves, who does not need to conquer their own feelings, but can simply hold them gently and let them pass. That calm is the truest power there is, and it is available not through force, but through the soft, patient knowing of your own heart. Come home to yourself now. Turn the long day's outward gaze around and rest it gently on the one who is here. Not to fix anything, not to judge. Just to be quietly, kindly present to yourself at last, after a whole day of being present to everyone else. To know yourself is wisdom. To be at peace with yourself is power. And in that quiet self-knowing, that gentle homecoming, there is a deep and settling rest. The rest of someone who has finally stopped watching the world and come home to sit in the dark with themselves. Chapter 28. The Course of Water Through the World. Let us return to water once more, because the old master never truly left it, and because there is no image more perfectly suited to carrying a tired mind down towards sleep. The highest good, he said, is like water. Water benefits all things and does not compete. It flows to the low places that everyone else disdains. And in this, he said, it is close to the way itself. Trace the course of water through the world slowly in your mind, and let the tracing carry you. It falls as rain, soft and without effort, asking nothing. It gathers into streams, finding always the lowest path, never forcing, never choosing the hard, high road when a low, soft one is available. It joins into rivers, growing without striving, simply by receiving what flows into it. It moves through the whole living world, giving itself to every root and every throat, benefiting all things, competing with none, and it takes for itself only the lowest place, the humble place, the place no one else wants. And from that lowest place it becomes the sea, the greatest water of all, precisely because it never tried to be great. There is a whole way of living folded into the course of that water, and you can feel it soften you as you follow it, to benefit all things and not compete. To not grasp for the high place, but settle, content, into the low one. To move through the world without forcing, finding the easy path, the path of least resistance, the path the water always finds. To grow not by striving and grabbing, but by receiving, by letting what comes come and letting what goes go. This is the course of water. This, the old master said, is close to the deepest way there is. Tonight, let yourself move like water. Stop competing with others, with the day, with your own tiredness, with sleep itself. Stop reaching for the high, hard place and settle into the low, soft one, which is this bed, this dark, this rest. Stop forcing your path and let yourself flow along the easiest one there is, which leads gently downward, always downward, toward the deep, still sea of sleep. Follow the water down now. Down from the high, busy places of the day, down along the soft, low path, down through the quiet dark, gathering nothing, forcing nothing, competing with nothing, moving with the same effortless grace as water finding its way to the sea. You are water tonight, seeking the lowest, softest, stillest place, and finding it and pooling there, dark and deep and utterly at rest. Chapter 29. Yielding and Overcoming. There is a paradox the old master returned to again and again, turning it over like a smooth stone, and it is one that only makes full sense in the soft, unguarded state you are drifting into now. Yield, he said, and you will overcome. Bend, and you will remain straight. Empty yourself, and you will be filled. The way to have is to give up trying to grasp. The way to arrive is to give up trying to force your way there. The daytime mind rejects this. It believes the opposite with its whole strength, that you overcome by pushing, that you get by grasping, that you arrive by forcing. And so it pushes and grasps and forces all day, and is baffled by how little peace all that effort brings. Because the paradox is true, even though it cannot be believed by the striving mind. The things most worth having, peace, rest, love, ease, sleep itself, cannot be seized. They can only be received. And they are received by yielding, by opening, by giving up the grasp. You already know this in your body if you listen. Every time you have gripped too hard at something you wanted, you have felt it slip further away. Every time you have finally let go, exhausted, giving up the grasp, the thing has had room, at last, to come. The relaxation that comes only when you stop trying to relax. The word that comes only when you stop straining to remember it. The sleep that comes only when you stop chasing it. Over and over, life teaches you this same soft lesson, and over, the grasping mind forgets it, and reaches, and grips, and loses again. Tonight, let yielding be your whole strategy, if it can even be called a strategy. Do not grasp at rest, yield to it. Do not force sleep. Empty yourself and let it fill you. Do not push your way toward peace. Bend and open and let peace arrive on its own in the space your yielding makes for it. The overcoming you want tonight, overcoming the restlessness, the racing thoughts, the wakefulness, comes not by fighting them, but by yielding, by softening, by giving up the whole battle. Give up overcoming, and you will overcome. Stop grasping at sleep, and sleep will come. Empty yourself of all the effort, all the trying, all the pushing, and let the emptiness be filled softly from a source you do not have to work for. Yield now, bend, open. Let go of the grasp entirely, and discover, as everyone who has ever truly rested has discovered, that the softest surrender is the surest way through. Chapter 30. The way of heaven does not strive. The way of heaven, the old master said, does not strive, and yet it overcomes. It does not speak, and yet it is answered. It does not summon, and yet all things come to it of their own accord. It works without effort, achieves without forcing, and arranges everything without ever seeming to arrange anything at all. It is the great model for him of how the deepest power moves, not through striving, but through a kind of effortless, unhurried, patient unfolding that accomplishes everything precisely by not forcing anything. Look up in your mind at the great turning of the natural world and feel how true this is. The seasons do not strive, and yet they turn faithfully, year after year, spring following winter, without ever being forced. The stars do not hurry, and yet they cross the whole sky each night, arriving exactly where they are going without any effort at all. The tides do not push, and yet they rise and fall, moving oceans on a rhythm older than any striving. The whole vast machinery of nature runs without strain, without hurry, without forcing, and it accomplishes more than all human striving ever has. You are part of that natural world, though you forget it, and the same effortless way is available to you underneath all your striving. Your heart beats without your forcing it. Your breath rises and falls without your effort. Your body heals its own wounds, digests its own food, renews its own cells, all without a single act of striving on your part. The deepest and most important work of your life is done entirely without effort by a wisdom in you that does not strive and yet accomplishes everything. You are At your core, already a creature of the effortless way. You just forgot, up on the striving surface, that it was carrying you all along. Tonight, let the striving stop and trust the effortless way that runs you. You do not have to force your breath. It breathes itself. You do not have to force your heart. It beats on its own. And you do not have to force your sleep. The same effortless wisdom that heals your body and turns your seasons will bring the sleep on its own, without striving, if you will only stop striving against it. The way of heaven does not strive, and yet it accomplishes all. So it is with the deepest part of you. Rest now in the effortless. Let the striving self, the forcing self, the pushing self grow quiet and step aside, and let the deep, unstriving wisdom of your own nature take over. The wisdom that beats your heart and breathes your breath and will, without any effort from you, carry you gently down into sleep. It does not strive, and yet it overcomes. Let it carry you now. Chapter 31. The bowl filled to the brim. Keep filling a bowl to the very brim, the old master warned, and it will spill. This small image holds one of his most practical mercies, and it lands especially softly in the tired hours, when you can feel in your own body just how full the bowl of your day has become. There is a limit to what any vessel can hold, and pouring past that limit does not increase what you have, it only spills what you already had, and wets your hands and wastes the very thing you were trying to gather. We live, so many of us, in a constant state of pouring past the brim. One more task into a day already full. One more commitment onto a life already overcommitted. One more thought into a mind already crowded to overflowing. We treat our own capacity as if it were limitless, as if we could keep filling forever, and then we are surprised and ashamed when things spill, when we snap, when we drop something, when we lie awake with a mind so full it cannot settle. But the spilling was not a failure of character. It was simply the bowl doing what a bowl does when you fill it past its brim. The wisdom is not to have a bigger bowl, it is to know the brim and to stop pouring before you reach it, to leave a little room at the top, to let the day be a little less than completely full, so that it does not spill. This is not laziness or lack of ambition. It is the simple physics of vessels, which the old master understood applies just as truly to a human life as to a bowl of water. Tonight, your bowl is full. It has been filled all day, to the brim and perhaps past it, and now, in the dark, you can finally stop pouring. Nothing more needs to go in. No more tasks, no more thoughts, no more plans. The bowl is full, and the wise thing, the only thing, is to stop adding and let it be still, so that what it holds can settle rather than spill. Feel the relief of stopping the pour. Feel how the full bowl, once you stop adding to it, can finally grow calm and still, its surface smoothing, its contents settling into quiet. Let your overfull day settle in its vessel now. Add nothing more. Pour nothing else in. Just let the brimming bowl of you grow still in the dark, its surface calming, holding steady exactly what it holds, spilling nothing, at rest. You have poured enough for one day. Now let it be still, and let the stillness be the last soft thing you do before you sleep. Chapter 32, The Spokes and the Empty Hub. Return once more to the image of the wheel and let it turn slowly in your mind as you sink deeper. 30 spokes meet at a single hub, and it is the empty hole at the center of the hub that lets the wheel spin and the cart roll. The spokes are the visible, busy, substantial part, many of them radiating outward, each one seeming essential. But without the empty center they all point to, they are nothing but a pile of sticks. It is the emptiness at the middle that turns them into a wheel. Your life has its spokes, the many activities, roles, tasks, and relationships that radiate out from you, each one seeming so essential, all of them together forming the busy substance of your days. And they matter. A wheel needs its spokes. But the old master would gently remind you that all those spokes are held together and made useful by something at the center that is not busy and not substantial at all, an empty, still, quiet center around which the whole turning life revolves. If you lose the empty center, the spokes fly apart. A life that is all activity, all spokes and no still hub cannot actually turn. It can only fragment, scattering in every direction at once, each spoke pointing its own way with nothing to hold them together. What holds a life together, what lets it turn smoothly instead of flying apart, is the quiet, empty center, the still point of rest that all the busy spokes revolve around. And most of us, in our busyness, forget the center entirely and live as a scatter of flying spokes, wondering why nothing holds. Tonight, you return to the empty hub, to the still center, to the quiet point of rest around which all the spokes of your life can gather and turn. This dark, restful hour in which you do nothing and hold nothing and simply are, this is the empty center, and it is not the least important part of your life, but the most. The still hub without which all the busy spokes would fly apart. In resting here, in being empty and still at the center, you are doing the deep work that lets the whole wheel of your life keep turning. Sink into the still hub now. Let the busy spokes of the day keep radiating out there somewhere, but bring yourself to the quiet, empty center where they all meet, the still point that does not move, the restful hollow around which everything turns. Here, at the center, there is no motion and no effort, only the deep stillness that holds the whole turning life together. Rest at the center. Be the empty hub. Let the wheel turn on your stillness. Chapter 33. Living without clinging. The sage, the old master said, acts but does not cling, accomplishes but takes no possession, and because they do not cling, nothing is ever truly lost to them. It is a portrait of a way of holding your life with open hands, doing what you do, engaging fully, and yet never gripping the results, never clutching at outcomes, never making your peace depend on holding on to what cannot be held. Clinging is the source of so much of our suffering. We cling to how we want things to go, and suffer when they go otherwise. We cling to how things used to be and suffer as they change. We cling to what we have, terrified of losing it, and the very clinging poisons our enjoyment of the thing we hold. We grip the people we love so tightly that we cannot simply be with them. We cling to our own plans, our own image, our own sense of how life ought to unfold, and every grip is a place where the changing world can wound us, because we have attached ourselves to something that will not stay. The sage lives differently, not by caring less, but by holding more lightly. They love, but without the desperate grip. They act, but without clutching the outcome. They enjoy what comes, fully, and then let it go when it goes, without the tearing pain of the one who tried to keep it forever. And because they hold everything with open hands, nothing can be torn from their grip, for there is no grip to tear from. What comes, comes. What goes, goes. And the sage remains whole and at peace in the flowing middle of it all. You have been clinging today, as we all do, to outcomes, to how things should have gone, to what you are afraid of losing, to 100 small grips your hands have not even noticed they are holding. And tonight, in the dark, you can practice the sage's open hand. You can loosen every grip, the day's outcomes. Let them be what they were, ungripped. Your fears about tomorrow, hold them lightly or set them down entirely. The whole clutching, gripping, clinging posture of a worried mind, let it soften into the open, easy hold of one who trusts the flow. Open your hands, even literally, in the dark. Feel the fingers uncurl. And let the same opening happen in your mind, every grip loosening, every clutch releasing, everything you were holding so tightly settling into an open and peaceful hold. When you cling to nothing, nothing can be lost. Rest tonight with open hands, holding all of it lightly, clinging to none of it, and be as free and unwoundable as the sage who long ago learned that the open hand holds more and suffers less than the fist that grips. Chapter 34. The Great Way is level and wide. The Great Way, the old master said, is smooth and level and easy to walk, and yet people love the little side paths, the difficult scrambling shortcuts, the steep and complicated routes. He noticed a strange thing about human beings, that when an easy, open, level road lies right before us, we so often choose instead the hard, twisting, effortful path, as if we did not quite trust that anything worthwhile could be that simple. This is worth sitting with, because you may recognize yourself in it. How often have you made your own life harder than it needed to be? Chosen the complicated way over the simple one? Trusted the effortful, strained, difficult path more than the easy, open, level one, as if ease were somehow suspect, as if peace had to be earned through struggle, as if the smooth road could not possibly lead anywhere real. We have a deep suspicion of easiness, a sense that if something is not hard, it does not count, and so we scramble up the difficult side paths when the great level way lay open before us all along. The old master invites you back onto the great way, the smooth and level road, the easy path you have been distrusting. And nowhere is this more true than with rest itself. You have made sleep into a difficult side path. something to earn, to work at, to strain toward, to achieve through effort and technique and trying. But sleep is the great way. Smooth, level, easy, the most natural thing in the world, requiring no scramble, no struggle, no difficult technique at all. It lies open before you, level and wide, and all your effortful side paths only lead you away from it. Tonight, step off the difficult path and onto the easy one. Stop making rest hard. Stop scrambling towards sleep up some steep and effortful route. The great way is right here, smooth and level beneath you, the simple, natural, effortless road that leads gently down into sleep, asking nothing of you but that you stop choosing the hard path and let yourself walk the easy one. There is nothing to achieve. There is only the open, level way, and your willingness to finally trust that it is really that simple. Let it be easy now. Let rest be smooth and level and wide beneath you. Stop distrusting the ease. The great way asks no struggle, and sleep, its gentlest stretch, asks none either. Walk the smooth road down into the dark. It was always this easy. You only had to stop choosing the hard way and let the great level way carry you home. Chapter 35. The Reward of Simplicity. The old master prized simplicity above almost everything, and he described its reward in the plainest terms. Manifest plainness, he said. Embrace simplicity, reduce selfishness, have few desires. In these unglamorous words lies a whole medicine for the modern, overcrowded, overstimulated mind, the medicine of less. Less wanting, less complication, less noise, less of the endless elaboration we pile onto our lives until we can no longer find ourselves underneath it all. We tend to believe that a richer life means a fuller, more complicated one, more experiences, more possessions, more stimulation, more of everything. And yet, the fuller and more complicated our lives become, the more scattered and exhausted we feel, the harder it becomes to find any peace in the crowded noise of it all. The old master saw that the truly rich life, the deeply peaceful life, moves in the opposite direction, towards simplicity, toward plainness, toward the quiet sufficiency of few desires and uncomplicated days. There is enormous relief in simplifying, and you can taste it tonight even before you change anything about your waking life, because sleep is the ultimate simplicity. It strips everything away, all the complications, all the desires, all the crowded busyness of the day, down to the plainest possible state. A body at rest in the dark, wanting nothing, doing nothing, simply being. Sleep is the nightly return to radical simplicity, the shedding of all the day's elaboration, the coming home to the plainest and most peaceful version of yourself there is. Tonight, embrace that simplicity. Let the complications of your life fall away for a few dark hours. You do not have to hold the whole elaborate structure of your busy days right now. You do not have to want anything, plan anything, manage anything, be anything complicated at all. You can be plain, you can be simple, you can be reduced gently to the most essential and peaceful version of yourself. Just breath, just warmth, just rest in the quiet dark, wanting nothing, needing nothing, beautifully, restfully simple. Feel how much lighter the simple thing is than the complicated one. Feel the peace of few desires, of plainness, of a mind uncrowded and a heart that wants only this quiet moment. The reward of simplicity is exactly this rest, the deep, easy rest that only comes when you finally set down the elaborate weight of a complicated life and return, plain and simple and unburdened, to the quiet, essential self that needs so little and can finally, in that littleness, sleep. Chapter 36. Letting the mind settle like silt. Picture a jar of water taken from a stirred-up river, cloudy and brown, the silt swirling through it so thickly you cannot see through it at all. This is the mind at the end of a full day, churning, clouded, thick with the swirling sediment of everything that happened, unable to see clearly through its own agitation. And there is only one way to clear it, and it is the way we keep returning to, because the old master kept returning to it. Set the jar down and do not touch it, and let the silt settle on its own. Watch in your mind what happens when the jar is finally set down and left alone. At first, the water still swirls, the silt still clouds it, the agitation of all that stirring still moving through it. But slowly, if you do not touch it, if you simply let it stand, the swirling begins to slow. The heaviest particles begin to drift downward first, sinking toward the bottom. Then the finer ones follow, settling, a slow, silent snow of sediment drifting down through the stilling water. And gradually, from the top down, the water begins to clear. A growing band of clarity spreading downward as the silt sinks and gathers quietly at the bottom, leaving the water above it clear and still and calm. You cannot rush this. You cannot reach in and push the silt down faster. Touching it only stirs it up again. You can only set the jar down and leave it alone and let the settling happen in its own time, at its own pace, through nothing but stillness and patience. And it always happens, if you let it. The silt always settles, the water always clears. It is simply what still water does. Let your mind be that jar tonight. Set it down. Do not stir it. Do not reach in and try to clear it by force. Do not churn through your thoughts trying to sort them out. That is only more stirring, more clouding. Just set the churning mind down in the dark and leave it completely alone. And let the sediment of the day begin, on its own, to settle. Feel the swirling slow. Feel the heaviest worries sinking first, drifting down and away. Feel the finer agitations following, settling. A slow, soft snow of quieting thought drifting down toward the bottom. And feel the clarity spreading from the top down, the stillness growing, the water of your mind clearing as everything settles and sinks and comes to rest. You did nothing to force it. You only set it down and let it still. And now the mind grows clear and calm and quiet. The silt of the whole day settled softly at the bottom, the water above it still and transparent and deep, clear enough, at last, to sleep in. Chapter 37, The Gate of the Beginning. The old master spoke of a source before all things, a quiet origin out of which the whole world arose, and he called it, among other names, the gateway. The mysterious gate through which all things come into being and to which all things return. It cannot be seen, it cannot be grasped, it makes no sound and takes no shape. And yet everything flows out of it endlessly and back into it endlessly, the great breathing origin of the world. You do not have to understand this as philosophy tonight. You can feel it as something closer and softer than any idea. Because there is in you a place like that gate, a still, dark, quiet origin beneath all your thoughts and doings, a deep source from which your awareness arises each morning and to which it returns each night. You came out of that quiet source when you woke this morning, unfolding into a whole day of thought and activity. And tonight you are returning to it, folding back down into the still dark origin beneath everything, the gate through which you pass each night into rest. There is nothing to fear in this returning. It is the most familiar journey there is, one you have made every night of your whole life, so natural and so complete that you never even remember the crossing. Each night you pass back through the quiet gate, out of the busy world of the 10,000 things, into the still and formless source beneath. And each morning you emerge again, renewed, unfolding once more into the day. The gate swings both ways, gently, endlessly, and you have always passed through it safely. Tonight, let yourself approach the gate. Feel your awareness beginning its slow return toward the quiet source, the thoughts thinning, the shapes softening, the whole busy world of the day beginning to fold back down toward the still dark origin from which it all arose. You do not have to do anything to make this happen. It happens on its own, every night, the natural returning of a mind toward its source. You have only to allow it, to let yourself drift toward the gate, to pass through it as easily as you have passed through it 10,000 times before. Approach the mysterious gate now, the quiet origin, the still source beneath all things. Let your awareness soften and thin and begin its gentle passage back through. There is only rest on the other side, only the deep, formless quiet from which you will rise again, renewed in the morning. Drift toward the gate. Let it open soundlessly in the dark and pass through softly into the still source of sleep. Chapter 38. Nothing softer than water. Nothing in the world, the old master said, is softer or more yielding than water. And yet nothing is better at overcoming the hard and the strong. Nothing can take its place. The weak overcomes the strong. The soft overcomes the hard. Everyone knows this, he said, and yet no one lives by it. It is perhaps his purest statement of the whole teaching, and we return to it now, near the end, letting it carry us the rest of the way down. Everyone knows this, and yet no one lives by it. Feel the gentle sadness and the gentle invitation in that line. We know, somewhere deep, that softness endures and hardness breaks, that yielding overcomes and forcing fails, that the gentlest things are the strongest in the end. And yet we live, most of us, as though the opposite were true, hardening ourselves, forcing our way, gripping and straining and pushing against all the quiet evidence of the water. We know the truth and do not live it. The old master, all those centuries ago, was inviting people to finally close that gap, to live by the softness they already knew. Tonight you can begin to close it, at least for these dark hours. You can stop living by the hardness you do not even believe in, and let yourself live for one night by the softness you have always secretly known to be true. You can be like water, soft, yielding, gentle, and in exactly that softness, unbreakable. Not fighting the night, not forcing the sleep, not hardening against the racing mind. Just soft and yielding and quietly, patiently, the strongest thing there is. Feel the water in you now. Feel how soft you can become. The whole body softening, the mind softening, every hard and braced and rigid thing in you melting into the yielding softness of water. And know that this softness is not weakness, not defeat, but the deepest strength you have, the strength that outlasts every hard thing, the strength that carves canyons and outlives mountains and, tonight, gently overcomes the last of your wakefulness without any force at all. Nothing is softer than water, and nothing overcomes the hard and strong so completely. Be water tonight. Yield and overcome. Soften and endure. Let the last hardness dissolve out of you and become the flowing, yielding, gentle softness that is stronger than any force. And let that softness carry you the way water always carries what rests upon it, down and down into the deep, still sea of sleep. Chapter 39. The sage wears rough cloth. The sage, the old master said, wears rough cloth and carries jade within. On the outside, plain and unremarkable, dressed like anyone, drawing no eyes, making no show. But within, carrying something precious, whole, and quietly luminous, a hidden richness that needs no display, that does not depend on being seen or admired or recognized by anyone at all. The true worth is inward, and it is content to remain unseen. There is a deep rest in this image for anyone tired of being seen, tired of performing, tired of the endless effort to appear a certain way to the watching world. So much of our exhaustion comes from the outer display, the maintaining of an image, the performing of competence and success and having it all together, the constant awareness of how we appear to others. It is a heavy costume, this outward show, and we rarely get to take it off. We wear it even when no one is watching, so habituated to being seen that we perform for an audience that has long since gone home. But the sage has set the costume down. The sage wears rough cloth, makes no display, needs no audience, has nothing to prove to anyone, because the sage's worth is inward, a quiet jade carried in the heart, complete in itself, needing no witness. And that inner completeness is available to you too. Underneath all your outward performing, there is something in you whole and luminous that does not depend on being seen, that is exactly as valuable in the dark and alone as it ever was in the bright watched day. Tonight there is no one to perform for. The costume can come all the way off. You do not have to appear capable or successful or impressive or held together. You can be plain, rough-clothed, unremarkable, unseen, and know that your true worth, the quiet jade within, is entirely untouched by whether anyone is watching. It was never in the display. It was always inward, whole, and needing no witness at all. Set down the outward show now. Let go of how you appear, how you seem, how you are seen. There is no audience in the dark, and you need none. Rest in the plain, unwatched, rough-clothed peace of a person who has stopped performing, and feel underneath the shed costume the quiet, inward completeness that was there all along, luminous and whole, and asking nothing, carrying its hidden jade softly into sleep. Chapter 40, Whole by Being Bent. The old master offered a string of paradoxes that read almost like riddles, and they have a strange power to loosen the grip of the ordinary mind. Be bent, he said, and you will remain whole. Be crooked, and you will be straight. Be empty, and you will be full. Be worn out, and you will be renewed. Have little, and you will gain. Have much, and you will be confused. Each one turns the ordinary logic on its head, and each one points at the same soft truth from a different angle. Be bent, and you will remain whole. We spend so much effort trying to stay perfectly upright, perfectly straight, unbent by anything, and it is precisely this rigidity that breaks us. The thing that refuses to bend is the thing that snaps. But the one who is willing to bend, to bow, to yield to the pressures of a life rather than standing rigid against them, remains whole through it all, because bending is how living things survive. To be willing to be bent is to remain unbroken. The wholeness comes not from never yielding, but from yielding freely. Be worn out, and you will be renewed. Here is perhaps the gentlest paradox for you tonight. You are worn out. It is simply true. The day has worn you down, and you have arrived at the dark, used up and depleted, with little left. And the ordinary mind reads this as failure, as a problem, as something to be ashamed of or to fight against. But the old master reads it exactly the other way. To be worn out is the doorway to renewal. It is only the empty that can be filled, only the depleted that can be replenished, only the one who has spent themselves who can be, in the quiet of the night, made new. Your very exhaustion is not the enemy of your renewal. It is the beginning of it. So do not fight your worn-out state tonight. Do not be ashamed of your emptiness, your depletion, your having little left. These are not failures. They are the exact conditions of renewal, the emptiness that will be filled, the wornness that will be made new, the bentness through which you will remain whole. Let yourself be as worn out as you truly are, without resistance, and feel how the wornness itself is the doorway, how only by being this empty can you be filled, only by being this spent can you be renewed. Be bent and remain whole, be empty and be filled, be worn out and be made new. Tonight you are bent and empty and worn out, and by the soft, upside-down wisdom of the old master, that is exactly, precisely, the perfect condition in which to lie down in the dark and be renewed. Yield to it. Let the wornness be the doorway, and pass through it, bent and empty and spent, into the deep, renewing rest that only the worn out are ready to receive. Chapter 41. The use of what is not there. One last time, let us rest in the old master's love of empty things, because it is perhaps the single teaching most able to carry an anxious mind into peace. What is present gives a thing its shape, he said, but what is absent gives it its use. The clay makes the pot, but the emptiness inside makes it useful. The walls make the room, but the empty space makes it livable. Everywhere it is the nothing, the gap, the absence, the empty space that gives the substance its worth. We are so afraid of what is not there. The empty hour frightens us. The silence unnerves us. The gap in the conversation, the pause in the day, the blank space where activity used to be, we rush to fill all of it, treating absence as a problem, emptiness as a failure, the nothing as something to be anxiously eliminated. And in filling every gap, we destroy the very usefulness that the gaps provided. A pot filled solid with clay holds nothing. A room filled solid with walls shelters no one. A life filled solid with activity, with no gaps, no empty spaces, no restful nothing, has lost the very hollows that made it livable. Tonight is the useful nothing. This empty, dark, unfilled hour in which nothing is happening and nothing is being produced. This is not a waste, not a gap to be anxiously filled. It is the useful emptiness, the livable space, the restful hollow that gives your whole life its use. In doing nothing here, in resting in this rich and useful absence, you are not failing to be productive. You are providing the empty space around which everything else in your life can finally have room to be. So let this nothing be enough. Let the empty hour be exactly as empty as it is, and know that its emptiness is its worth. You do not have to fill it. You do not have to make it produce anything, mean anything, accomplish anything. You can let it be pure, useful, restful absence, the hollow of the pot, the space of the room, the gap that makes the whole thing work. There is such deep peace in finally letting the nothing be nothing, and finding that the nothing was exactly what you needed all along. Rest in the useful emptiness now, in the absence, in the rich, dark, unfilled nothing of this quiet hour. It asks for nothing and produces nothing, and it is, for exactly that reason, the most useful and necessary thing you will do all day. Let the nothing hold you, let the empty space be enough, and drift in the useful dark toward the deepest emptiness of all, which is the dreamless, restful, renewing nothing of sleep. Chapter 42. The quiet between two thoughts. As you drift now, closer to sleep than to waking, notice something the old master's whole teaching has been quietly pointing toward all along. The small silence that lives between your thoughts. Thoughts arise, one after another, all day and often all night, a nearly endless stream. But between each thought and the next, if you look very gently, there is a tiny gap, a small, quiet space, a breath of stillness where no thought is. And in that gap lives a peace deeper than any thought could ever hold. We usually live entirely in the thoughts and never notice the gaps. Our attention leaps from one thought to the next so quickly that the small silences between them go completely unseen, and it feels as though the thinking is continuous, a solid, unbroken stream with no space anywhere in it. But it is not solid. It is more like a string of beads, and between every bead there is a small space, a little quiet, a soft gap of no thought. And that quiet between the thoughts is always available, always there, a doorway to stillness hidden in the very midst of the busiest mind. You do not have to stop your thoughts tonight. That would only be more effort, more forcing, and thoughts cannot be stopped by force anyway. You have only to notice, gently, the small quiet that already lives between them. A thought arises and passes, and before the next one comes, there is a little silence. Rest your attention there, in the gap, in the quiet, lightly, without grasping. And another thought will come and pass, and again there will be a small silence. Let your attention sink into those silences, the soft spaces between the beads, the quiet between the thoughts. And notice how, as you rest in the gaps, rather than in the thoughts, the gaps seem to widen. The thoughts grow further apart, slower, softer, less insistent, and the quiet between them grows and deepens and spreads. This is the mind settling towards sleep, the thoughts thinning, the silences widening, the quiet between them opening into a wide, soft stillness that is almost all silence now, with only an occasional thought drifting through and dissolving. You did not force the thoughts to stop. You only rested in the quiet between them and let the quiet grow. Rest there now, in the widening silence, in the deep quiet between the last few thoughts. Let each thought that comes simply pass, like a leaf on water, and return your attention softly to the stillness underneath. The gaps are wide now. The silence is deep. There is almost no thought left, only the soft, dark quiet spreading through your whole settling mind, the peaceful, thoughtless stillness at the very edge of sleep, into which you are, gently and without effort, beginning to disappear. Chapter 43. What remains when striving ends. There is a question worth drifting with now, softly, as the striving of the day finally comes to its end. What is left of you when all the striving stops? All day you are defined by your doing, your tasks, your effort, your pushing, your endless work of making things happen. But underneath all that doing, when it finally ceases, something remains. And the old master spent his whole life pointing at that something, the quiet self that is there when all the striving ends, the you that exists beneath everything you do. We are so identified with our doing that we half believe we would disappear without it. If I am not producing, not achieving, not pushing forward, then who am I? What am I even worth? And so we keep striving, partly out of a quiet terror that without the striving there would be nothing left, that our whole worth is in the doing, that if we ever truly stopped, we would find only emptiness where a self should be. It is one of the deepest and most exhausting fears there is, and it keeps us running long after we should have rested. But it is not true, and tonight you can discover that it is not true. Because tonight the striving stops completely, and you do not disappear. When the doing ends, you are still here, breathing, resting, aware, present. Something of you remains that was never the doing at all, that does not depend on any achievement or effort or productivity, that is simply, quietly, restfully here. That remaining self, the one left when all the striving ends, is who you most deeply are. And it is enough, entirely enough, exactly as it is, doing nothing at all. Feel that self now, the one beneath the doing. As the day's striving falls completely away, notice that you are still here. Not as the doer, not as the achiever, not as the one who pushes and produces, but as something quieter and deeper and more essential, the simple, restful awareness that remains when everything else has stopped. You have not disappeared. You have only finally arrived at yourself, the self that was always underneath the striving, waiting patiently for the striving to end so that you could finally rest as who you truly are. Rest as that self now, the one who remains, the one who needs to do nothing, achieve nothing, prove nothing, and is complete anyway. All the striving has ended, and you are still here, whole and enough and at peace, and there is nothing left to do but be, quietly, restfully, exactly as you are. And let that being carry you down, at last, towards sleep. Chapter 44. The Long Road Home to Yourself. The whole of the Old Master's Way can be understood as a long, slow road home, not to any place out in the world, but home to yourself, home to the natural, simple, unforced self you were before the world taught you to strive and grasp and harden. All the teaching, all the water and the valleys and the uncarved wood points in the same direction, back and down and inward toward the quiet home that was in you all along. It is a long road, this homecoming, because we wander so far. We spend years, sometimes whole lifetimes, traveling away from ourselves, out into the world of striving and achieving and appearing, further and further from the simple, natural self we started as, until we can barely remember it is there. We chase things we thought would make us whole, and find they only carried us further from the wholeness we already had. We climb and reach and grasp our way further and further from home, all the while carrying home inside us, unnoticed, the entire time. But the road home is always open, and it is shorter than it seems, because you never actually left. The natural self, the simple self, the self at peace was never lost, only forgotten, only covered over, only wandered away from inattention while remaining exactly where it always was, deep inside, waiting. And the way home is not a long, hard journey after all. It is simply a turning of attention back inward, back toward the quiet self beneath all the wandering, a remembering of the home you never truly left. Tonight you are on the last, soft stretch of that road home. All day you traveled outward, Now, in the dark, you are turning back, drawing inward, coming home to the simple, restful self beneath all the striving. Feel the homecoming in it, the deep relief of turning back toward yourself after a long day facing outward, the quiet gladness of returning to the natural, simple, peaceful self that was waiting for you the whole time. You are almost home now, just a little further inward, just a little deeper down. Come home now, the rest of the way, home to the quiet self, home to the simple peace beneath all the wandering. Home to the natural, unforced, restful you that the old master spent his whole life pointing toward, and that was never anywhere but here, deep inside, waiting patiently through all your long travels for this exact moment of soft return. You are home. Rest here. You have arrived at last, at the only home that was ever really yours. And it is warm and quiet and dark and deeply, deeply at peace. Chapter 45. The tide that needs no pushing. Far out beyond all the striving of the world, the great tide rises and falls, twice each day, moving the whole ocean, and no one pushes it. It needs no help. It has risen and fallen faithfully since long before there were any people to worry about it, and it will go on, rising and falling long after. It is one of the largest movements on the whole earth, and it happens entirely on its own, without effort, without striving, without a single hand to push it. It simply moves, because moving is its nature, drawn by the quiet pull of the moon it never even sees. There is a tide like that in you, and remembering it is a deep comfort now, the tide of your own rest and renewal. The natural rhythm of waking and sleeping, of activity and stillness, of spending and restoring, that moves through you as faithfully as the ocean's tide, and that needs no more pushing than the ocean does. Sleep is the great tide of your life, rising each night to renew you, falling back each morning to release you into the day, moving on its own ancient rhythm, drawn by a pull older and deeper than any effort of yours. You have been trying so often to push that tide, to force the sleep, to make the rest happen, to control by effort a rhythm that was always meant to move on its own. And it has been as futile as trying to push the ocean. The tide of sleep does not need your pushing. It rises on its own, in its own time, drawn by its own deep pull, faithful and effortless and sure. You have only to stop pushing it, to stop fighting its rhythm, and to let it rise, as it has always risen, without any help from you at all. Feel the tide beginning to rise now, on its own, unforced. The great natural pull of sleep, drawing you gently downward and inward, moving through you as faithfully as the ocean's tide, needing nothing from you but that you stop resisting it. You do not have to make it happen. You could not by effort if you tried. You have only to let it rise, to float on it as it lifts, to be carried by the deep, effortless tide of your own renewal. Let the tide take you now. It needs no pushing. It rises on its own, faithful and sure, drawn by a pull far older than you. And all you must do is stop fighting it and let yourself be lifted and carried, the way the whole ocean is lifted and carried, effortlessly. twice a day, forever. The tide of sleep is rising. Float on it. Let it carry you out, softly, into the deep. Chapter 46. Setting down the last stone. Imagine as you drift that you have been carrying stones all day, a pocketful, a bagful, a whole day's worth of small, heavy stones, each one a worry, a task, a tension, a thing held. You have carried them so long, you have stopped noticing their weight. They have become just part of how it feels to be you. But now, in the dark, you can begin to set them down, one by one, the last few stones of the day, until your hands are finally empty and your whole body is finally light. Take the first stone. It is a worry about tomorrow. Feel its weight in your hand, and then simply open your hand and let it fall into the dark, gone. You do not need to carry tomorrow's stone tonight. Tomorrow will be there whether you carry it or not, and it is lighter to meet unburdened. Let it drop. Feel how your hand is a little emptier, your body a little lighter, with that one stone gone. Take the next stone. It is something from today, something that did not go right, something you have been turning over and holding. Feel its weight and let it go too. It is already done. Carrying it changes nothing except how heavy you feel. Open your hand, let it fall into the dark, lighter still. Take another, a tension you have been holding in your body, a bracing, a grip, let it drop. And another, some small, anxious thing you cannot even name, let it fall. One by one, the stones leaving your hands, your load growing lighter, your whole self growing lighter, as each held thing drops away into the soft dark and is gone. Keep setting them down, gently, one by one, all the small heavy stones of the day. There is no rush. Just let each one you notice fall from your open hand into the dark, until there are only a few left, and then only one, and then none, until your hands are completely empty, until you are carrying nothing at all, until the whole day's weight has been set down, stone by stone, into the soft, forgiving dark, and you are lighter than you have been in a very long time. Feel it now, the emptiness of your hands, the lightness of your unburdened body, the deep relief of carrying nothing. Every stone is set down. There is nothing left in your hands, nothing left to hold, nothing left to carry into sleep. You are light and empty-handed and free. The last stone has fallen into the dark. And with your hands finally empty and your whole self finally light, there is nothing left to do but rest. Chapter 47. The stillness beneath the noise. Beneath all the noise of the world, the old master knew, there is a great stillness. The still source from which everything arises and to which everything returns, silent and deep and unmoving beneath the whole churning surface of existence. And beneath all the noise of your own mind, your own day, your own life, there is that same stillness, the deep quiet that was there before the noise began and will be there after it fades, the silence underneath everything. The noise is real, but it is only the surface. The thoughts, the worries, the endless mental chatter, the churning of a busy mind, all of it lives on the surface, like waves on the top of a deep sea. And we live up there, in the noise, in the waves, and forget that beneath them lies a vast still depth where no wave ever reaches, where it is always already perfectly quiet. The stillness is not something you have to create. It is already there, underneath, always, waiting beneath the noise like the deep still water beneath the waves. You do not have to silence the noise tonight. The waves on the surface may keep moving. That is what surfaces do. You have only to sink beneath them, down out of the noisy surface into the deep, still quiet underneath, which was there all along. Let your awareness drop below the churning thoughts, below the mental noise, below the busy surface of the mind, down into the deep silent stillness that lies beneath it all, unmoving, peaceful, always already quiet. Sink into that stillness now, down beneath the last of the day's noise, beneath the last thoughts drifting across the surface, down into the deep quiet underneath, the stillness that no noise ever reaches, the silence that was there before you were born and will be there long after, the deep, peaceful source beneath all things. It asks nothing of you. It only receives you, the way the deep sea receives what sinks into it, quietly, completely, holding you in a stillness deeper than any noise could ever disturb. Rest in the stillness beneath the noise. Let the surface churn if it must. You are below it now, in the deep quiet, held and peaceful and still. This is the stillness the old master pointed toward his whole life. The deep silent source beneath everything, and it has been in you all along, beneath all your noise, waiting. You have found it now. Rest here, in the deep still quiet, and let it hold you as you cross the last soft distance into sleep. Chapter 48. Sleep now, returning to the source. And now we come to the end of the long soft road, and there is almost nothing left to say, because you are almost all the way home. The whole night has been a single slow letting go, a setting down of weight, a softening of hardness, a stilling of noise, a returning of the striving self to the quiet source beneath it. And now there is only the last small step, which is not a step at all, but a simple ceasing, a final, gentle release into sleep. You have let go of the pushing. You have stopped fighting the river and let it carry you. You have become soft as water, humble as the valley, empty as the useful cup, still as the settled silt. You have set down the last stone. You have come home to the quiet self beneath all the doing. There is nothing left to hold, nothing left to force, nothing left to do. The old master's whole teaching has carried you exactly here, to the soft edge of sleep, where the only thing left is to let go completely and return to the source. So return now. Let the last thread of effort dissolve. Let the last flicker of thought fade. Let the boundary between you and the deep quiet grow thin and thinner until there is no boundary at all, only the soft dark, only the deep stillness, Only the gentle current of the way carrying you home to the still source from which you rose this morning and to which you now gratefully return. You do not have to do anything. It is already happening. The tide is carrying you. The river is bearing you home. The source is receiving you back. There is nothing to fear and nothing to hold and nothing to be. There is only rest now, deep and soft and complete, the rest of a thing that has finally stopped striving and returned to where it belongs. You are safe, you are held, you are carried, you are home. The whole soft way of Lao Tzu has led you here, to this final quiet, this deep dark peace, this gentle return to the source of all rest. Let go now, completely. Let the current take you the rest of the way. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to hold, nothing left but the deep, soft, dark, and the quiet return. Rest. Sleep now.